welcome to Out of the Rut. I'm Amy Hughes, and I'm here to challenge the status quo in farming. I'm going to be digging into the messy human side, sharing real stories and fresh thinking. Are you ready to shake things up? Let's crack on. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Out of the Rut podcast. Ooh, it's a bit scary this. I haven't got my little Canadian friend sat in front of me on the screen, but I suppose I was going to have to put my big girl pants on one day and get on with it. So thank you very much for joining me. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Amy Hughes, and I am founder and director of Empower Ag Limited. So yeah, first episode. I suppose I should tell you a little bit about why I've decided to do this. So, as some of you all know, I host another podcast called Think Outside the Fence with Aaron Nerbus, who's in Canada. And we've been speaking to farmers and other people in the industry for a little while who are doing things a bit differently. But I have a real, arguably unhealthy interest in like the human side of farming, so the people side of things. And I wanted to do a podcast to get into the real nitty gritty of that. So speak to some people that really understood the psychology of why we do stuff. And today's episode is a perfect example of that. I'll go on to who our guest is in a little bit. But I believe that we have spent far too long in agriculture ignoring the fact that farmers are people and not putting enough investment, enough time, enough thought into how we upskill and deal with the people side of farming. So by the people side of farming, I mean everything from mental health through to succession and anything in between. So family fallouts, conflict management, why we do the things we do, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's why I've done it. Don't know whether anybody's going to like it. I've had a wonderful time recording it. But yeah, please do let me know what you think. And also, if there's a topic that you want me to cover, a specific topic that you want me to cover, then please do let me know. Right, let's get on with today's episode. So I was fairly delirious about the fact that I had a real life chartered clinical psychologist, neuropsychologist, and international keynote speaker, and award-winning author sat in front of me. So today's episode is with Dr. Stephanie Fitzgerald. So I first came across Steph at the AHDB Agri-Leaders Conference, and actually I didn't get to go to the conference because I got bloody COVID, but somebody very kindly gifted me her book and Reworked, that one's called, and I read that and it just did an awful lot of good for me in the state that I was in at the time with work and everything else. So I really wanted Steph to come on so that I could, I suppose, put some of the stuff to her that I see in agriculture and that I hear from the people that I work with in agriculture to see if she could put a bit of the science behind it. So Steph's worked as a health and wellbeing consultant to companies all across the world and loads of varied industries, which I think is really important. I want to try and get away from this farming is special mentality that we seem to have. So Steph's going to bring in some thinking from other industries as well. And she successfully delivered like interventions for companies, ranging right the way through from global consultancy through to Premier League football teams. So Steph has got so much experience in this type of thing. She specialises in delivering practical evidence-based interventions. So she is very practical in what she delivers, and you'll hear as we listen to Steph speak, she comes up with loads of brilliant analogies to try and bring life to some quite sciencey, psychology-based sort of subjects. And she's so passionate about ensuring people that are happy, healthy and safe in the workplace. And she believes that everybody should enjoy work, which is interesting, isn't it? Because farming is a job. I know it's a lifestyle as well in a lot of cases, but it is a job. And I think we're maybe missing the mark a little bit in terms of well-being in the industry. And I mean, let's face it, how many people do you speak to that are absolutely loving life and loving farming? There's not many, is there? So we had an awesome chat. I came with a list of questions as long as my arm for Steph. I didn't get through them all, surprisingly, because it was unfair to keep her captive for any longer. But we spoke a lot about inherited cultures, which are just huge in farming. You know, this is the way it's always been. When people sort of, what's the word? When people reject change, they often can't give you a reason why. It's almost like a feeling that comes out of them, and Steph talks us through how that sort of links back to cultures and inherited beliefs. So things that we might have been told when we were younger and we just now believe them to be true. We talk about that. We go through all this on the grip course as well, actually, and it's amazing what happens when you challenge people on their inherited cultures and beliefs. We have a really good chat about well-being, why well-being needs to be built into the system. Like, it's not a nice to have. Everybody's farm businesses is being run by people, and if they're not well, that's a problem, and we shouldn't really be saving that for crisis mode. And obviously, it's difficult sometimes to build that in, but she does go through some practical ways that we can do that. We talk a lot about autonomy and control. So this is something you'll have heard me banging on about before. And autonomy it's one of the biggest drivers towards mental well-being, mental ill health or otherwise, when people don't feel in control. And obviously, again, in farming, there's a huge amount that is out of our control. But how do we work with that? We have a little chat about social media, which is absolutely fascinating. And Steph came out with an amazing phrase that if you are enraged, you are engaged. So the algorithms and how they work, and how you've got to try and protect yourself a little bit from that, especially when there's loads of bad news breaking left, right and centre. It can make things worse, can't it, going on social media? And then we finish with a little bit of my, seems to be a bit of a pet peeve. It's way more than a pet peeve of mine at the minute. I have lost sleep over this. And it's this tall poppy syndrome. So this really nasty habit that we have in the industry of, instead of being curious when somebody's done something different or appears to be doing something that's working well for them, we cut them down. And as Steph says, it's not limited to agriculture, but I've heard some really nasty stories just recently that I would say is bullying. It's not tall poppy syndrome. It's not just a bit of gossip at the mart. Like, this is really affecting people's mental health. And I think affecting change in the industry. I think this is a real blocker for change. You know, what will the neighbours think? What will the neighbours say? All that kind of thing. So have a listen. Let me know what you think. As I said, if there is anything in the future that you want me to cover, any topics that you want me to cover, please give me a shout, because I would love to do something that you want to hear about. Yeah. And this is on YouTube as well. First time I've done that. If anybody wants to watch my face. I mean, I maybe won't bother, but it's there if you want to watch it. All right. Enjoy. Morning, Steph.
Morning.
I am borderline delirious to have you here, an actual real life clinical psychologist and a neuropsychologist captive for an hour in front of me. I'm so grateful for you joining me. Thank you very much. So I have a long list of things that I want to pick your brains about today, but I thought I would just start, I suppose, with my how I know you and how I sort of came in contact with you, because you spoke at the AHDB Agri Leaders Conference one year, which again I was delirious about, and then I got COVID and I couldn't come, and I remember being at home like, but somebody very, very kindly gifted me one of your books, because you've got multiple books, Reworked. I have it here, and it was one of those books that I just devoured and just found it so relatable, Steph. At the time, I was working for a big industry organisation, so I probably didn't relate it to farming as much as I could have done. But since coming back to it, it just applies to everybody. And it's all about, there's no good swapping jobs if you haven't sorted out your inner things to do with work. So the one thing that stood out for me this morning when I was going through this again was one line on the back of the blurb. And it says, jumping from job to job will not provide you with answers unless you can first rework yourself. And I hope everybody's listening now. Shed yourself of the burden of inherited cultures, past beliefs and historical mistakes. And I just thought, that sums up farming in a lot of cases. So I suppose that's where I wanted to start this conversation. And like, what does that sentence mean to you? Give us some more sort of background to the whole inherited cultures, past beliefs and historical mistakes.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really helping people understand that it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason why I started to write that book, and that I wanted to kind of put the power of people's well-being at work back in their hands, is because often people would jump job to job to job and hope that this job would be the one that would make them happy. This job would be the one that would fulfill them. This job would be, amazing. And what I noticed would happen was in every job, inevitably it was a disappointment, because jobs can't fix us. So if we have these inherited beliefs and this kind of burden of the past that we haven't worked through, we just carry that to the next job.
Mm-hmm.
So inevitably the job would disappoint, which would just be such a shame. But also the honeymoon period for every job got shorter and shorter, because people would realize, like, oh no, this is the one that's going to fix me. In they go, and then, oh no, it hasn't fixed anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just be this moment of like, oh, I'm back at square one. And so what I really wanted to help people understand was we have all these warped beliefs about work and about well-being and about our careers. And so well-being is never really discussed. No one ever really tells us how to be well at work, or how to work well, how to have difficult conversations, how to explore challenging topics, how to put ourselves at the center of our career. No one ever really talks to us about that stuff. And so there's this void, and we fill the void with salary and status. So we're told, well, we're successful as long as we're earning a lot of money and we have a fancy job title.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of C-suite workers I work with who are unhappy and who have the salary, have the salary and the status, and they just aren't fulfilled, and they've moved up the career ladder. So on paper, they've done everything right, but they haven't shed any of this sort of past belief around salary status. That's all I need to focus on. If I just get those things, I'll be happy. And then they get those things and they're not. So I think for me, I really wanted people to understand you don't have to be at C-suite to be happy. You could be happy in any job. And I love that you say it relates to farming, because I work with so many different people.
Yeah.
I don't just work with an office worker who's sat there behind a laptop. I work with people on the shop floor, in factories, in farming. I work with people who are, if you like, getting their hands dirty in their jobs. And I wanted them to know, actually, workplace wellbeing is for you as well. It's not just if you've got your own laptop and can work from home. This is for everyone. Everyone can and should be happy and healthy at work.
Yeah, and it's so, as a sweeping generalization, Steph, I'm going to split the industry. So you will have farm workers that are working for farm business owners, and I think I see an awful lot of that where they swap jobs, they go work on another farm because it, every excuse under the sun, the culture wasn't right, the hours weren't right, this wasn't right. And then, exactly as you said, they go to another job and it's no better. And I think people sometimes in those situations blame the industry for the way that the industry is and the norms that we have. And I'm not saying that it isn't something to do with that, but everything that you talk about in your book, it's about figuring out for yourself, isn't it, where, what it is, what happiness means to you in your job, and working on that first. And the thing that you said about getting the promotions and going up, and it's still, oh God, that relates. I can relate so much to that. I literally had a conversation with somebody the other day about when you get promoted, 9 times out of 10, you end up not doing all the things that you're good at and that you enjoy. And actually that again is, how do you go up the ladder if you want to, or be promoted to herd manager or whatever it is, and still keep the enjoyment whilst doing all the other stuff. So there's definitely that side of it in the industry. But I think the other side of it is, in so many farming businesses, it might be a family farm, and there is such just a blurred line between work and life. It's so often seen as a way of life, and to even think that you could have satisfaction in the job or as a career and then life be a separate thing, I think is really alien to people. Like, what are your thoughts on that when you literally take 2 steps and you've left work and I suppose it's like homeworking a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really powerful to recognize that I don't think this idea of splitting work and home works, and certainly not for farmers, because, as you say, there is so much. So there's quite a lot to unpack there. So what I would say is that this inherited belief of it's just the way things are isn't helpful. And it keeps people stuck in a culture that doesn't work for them. So I think there is this narrative that farming is very, very difficult. And of course it is. You only have to look around. You have to look at the colder, darker days now, and you think, oh no, I wouldn't fancy that. There is so much, let alone grant applications, budget cuts, all the stuff that just makes farming really challenging. So there are inherent difficulties. But this is why I think it's really important that we weave well-being into the fabric of what we do rather than have it as an add-on extra.
Yes.
But it's almost like the fuel for your engine. So you can only be happy and healthy at work if you are taking care of your well-being. It can't be that I'll burn myself out and then I'll give myself a day off, because there isn't a day off in farming.
No.
So that strategy doesn't work. So then it's the, oh, when someone retires and I step into their shoes, then I'll have a better work-life balance. And you're sort of talking about maybe 20, 30 years in the distance. And you think, well, that's not an option. So I do think those inherited beliefs of this is just the way it just is difficult, it just is awful, is really disheartening. If you're coming into the family business, or you're new into it, or you're coming into the sector, I think that could be really disheartening, because it's like, oh, I just have to accept that my life is going to be really tough. But also there's no point doing anything. There's no point taking care of my well-being. There's no point looking after myself, because it just is hard anyway. And I think those things could be really limiting and really reduce people's ability to prioritize themselves, prioritize their health and well-being. Mm-hmm. And I do see that in farming, where it is absolutely animals first. And they will come last on the priority list every time, sometimes behind other things that absolutely don't need to be a priority. But it's almost like, no, the farmer way is I'm bottom of my to-do list. And it's like, actually, that is the pathway to burnout.
Yeah, it is. And I've said this really recently on another podcast. One of my biggest sort of frustrations, and I suppose the reason that I have just set up this business, is the support that we have for people in crisis, burnout, mental health issues, all that kind of thing in the industry is absolutely fantastic. We have some brilliant charities that are there to support those people that have got to crisis point. I am so sick of sticking a plaster over it and letting people get to that stage in the first place. And everything that you talk about in this book is about it. Exactly. I think you've just said it, building a foundation. So your boundaries, your mindset, what you believe, the way that you deal with things that are out of your control, all that sort of thing comes into it. And that, exactly as you said, farming will always be a hard job. Always, you've got to work hard. That's the way it is. Cows, sheep don't have a day off. They need feeding every day. Now, I'll just come back to something that you said about there isn't a day off in farming, because I put a video on, which was basically just on social media, of basically just me being bullshit, and my face was saying it all. And it was called The Stories We Tell Ourselves in British Agriculture. And it was about this limiting belief thing. And everybody's got them, Steph, haven't they? Like, from the smallest thing, it's just things that you are in your head for whatever reason, and you just take them to be fact. And actually, when you think about it, it's not fact. So when I put this video out, I invited people to give me their favourite limiting beliefs or stories that they tell themselves. And honestly, I don't think I've ever had as much engagement. People were just like chucking them at me. You know, there was all sorts of things, from if you have downtime, you're lazy and that won't work here. That's like one that we hear all the time in agriculture. Women can't do, like, all these. It is an industry with obviously a huge amount of tradition and a lot of these stories. And the not having a day off is one that bugs me. And there'll be people that say, well, who is going to feed the cows if I have a day off? I don't know. I can't answer that for you. But it's about building a work culture, a business model that allows you to get somebody in.
Yeah,
isn't it? It's how do you catch these limiting beliefs, and how do you, once you've realized that they're a limiting belief, how do you go back to think, right, well, what can I do about them? What would your thoughts be on that?
I think the first step for me is always that kind of start by stopping. So I would want to tune in to what is my barrier. So what is it that I'm telling myself? And you're right, but our limiting beliefs often come in really early doors. So it could be that a teacher at your primary school said to you, I don't know, oh, Steph's not very good at maths. And then it could be that as a woman in my 40s, I'm now hesitant to start my own business because I think I wouldn't handle the finance thing because I'm not very good at maths.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an inherited belief from maybe being 6 years old and an off the cuff remark that a teacher made that I've taken as fact. And it's not that we're daft, it's that when we're young, we hear things, we process things at the age we hear them.
Yeah.
So we hear something and we process it at that age. And when you're 6, adults are right. So if someone tells you something when you're young, you just inherit that belief and you internalize it and you're like, right, I'm now not good at maths. But neuroplasticity in the brain tells us you can learn anything at any age. There is no such thing. You might have a natural affinity for something, you might have an inherent talent for something, but even if you don't, you can still learn those things. You can do hard things. Your brain is wired to do hard things. And I think once you can recognize what is the belief that I hold about myself and what is the fear that is maintaining it, because often there is fear behind it. So for your examples, someone saying, well, downtime is laziness. Okay, what's wrong with being lazy? What's the fear around being seen to be lazy? Who is it that you need to look busy for? Who is it? Is there a fear of disapproval? Is there a fear of not belonging? Is there a fear of rejection? Is there a fear of job loss? You know, it's what is that fear that's keeping that belief going? And then finding safe ways to test it. So let's take that one about downtime is laziness. I would start potentially with a gentle little behavioral experiment of maybe saying to a colleague or a friend, I'm thinking of taking Sunday afternoon off. Oh, right, you know, what are your plans? No, I think I just need that time. And just see what the reaction is, because I might think, oh, they're going to think this about me. They're going to slag me off. They're going to be WhatsApping my family, telling me this, that, and the other. And they may have no response at all. They may say, oh, that sounds good. Or, oh, how lovely. Enjoy it. There could be no reaction. And if I do get a strong reaction that's like, oh, you lazy cow, taking Sunday afternoon off, what are you thinking? Then that's also feedback. And that might tell me, you are not the right person to support my downtime. So maybe I do need to build that network. And I think it is that, what are the actual barriers in my way? Because there will be a financial implication of getting help in or excuse me, or cover or support. So there are practical barriers, but what are the mental blockers that I'm putting in my own way? And then gently challenging them, because your brain can do hard things. That's the thing to remember. Your brain is wired to do difficult things. It doesn't need you to trip it up any further. Like, it can handle it. So I think identify the belief. What is the fear that's kind of maintaining it? And then how can I gently play with that a little bit and see if it's true?
Yeah, that thing that you said about figuring out who the right person is to speak to about it, I think that's massive in agriculture. I just did a blog on this about how we're all influencers, and this is the snowball effect in agriculture. This culture and these beliefs are so heavily ingrained that there would be so many people that if somebody said, I'm going to have Sunday afternoon off, would just automatically, without thinking and probably not even really mean it, say, oh, you're part-time. Like, it would just come out. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's a whole industry-wide piece is this about catching these beliefs. Well, why are you part-time? Why are you part-time? Like, it's that is fascinating. But also giving people the permission, if somebody does say something to them like that, to not take it as gospel and just think, I need to not speak to that person about that topic again because it doesn't do me any good. But it's really hard, isn't it, Steph? Like, it's especially in an industry like farming where these beliefs are like, well, gospel. Some of them, it's
yeah. And I think you have that self-appointed expert, don't you, sometimes in farmers? There's someone who will have an opinion on something. And I say this as someone, you know, I love working with farmers, genuinely one of my favorite client groups, and I love the impact that really small tweaks and changes can make in such a huge, broad industry. So I sort of hold farmers with great affection in my heart, but sometimes you do have these self-appointed experts. So even when I go in, you can imagine in some sectors, I go in and I say, I'm a clinical psychologist. And you sort of get that, oh, right, here we go, here we go. And they're already flooded with all their misconceptions and ideas about what it is I'm there to do.
Yep.
There'll be jokes about the relationship with their mother. There'll be jokes about mind reading. They'll say, oh, I'm not going to say anything in front of you. Well, you and I both know that's not true with farmers. So that's there'll be all this kind of avalanche of stuff. But just once you get past that knee-jerk reaction and I start to talk to people, obviously you do get to the crisis that exists in farming, you get to the mental health support that's needed, but also you get to the tiny tweaks that could make someone's day better. You get to tiny adjustments, and often they are small mindset shifts, just supporting each other, connecting with others, understanding that maybe you're not part-time if you take one afternoon every fortnight off. But what you might be is a responsible farmer, because you might be safer on the farm because you're a bit better rested. And that way you can look after yourself, you can look after your team, you can look after your animals. Maybe you're not part-timer, maybe you're much more responsible. And it's just that small mindset shift can literally change the running of a farm.
And I spoke to somebody the other day that said, you know, back in the 70s, if you were farming, you didn't really need to do any of this. You didn't really need to have conversations. All you needed to do was just work hard and you would have a successful business. Now, I wasn't alive in the 70s. I imagine there's a lot of truth to that. But the problem is, Steph, is that we are in a totally different society now. Like, the new entrants coming into farming have different wants and needs, and there is nothing wrong with that. Like, nobody who is truly lazy, whatever that word means, is going to choose farming as a career. Let's be honest, like, they're not. So just because they do want to spend time with the wife and kids, God forbid they want to spend time with the wife and kids, or just because, you know, they want to have every other week, whatever it might be, it's not wrong, is it? It's just different, and everything's changing. The world's changing, the industry's changing, society's changing. So the time where we could just work harder and everything would be okay has gone. Like, people are the crux, aren't they, of, well, any business, but especially farming.
Absolutely. And I think for me, letting go of that belief of, if I just worked harder, if I was just more organized, if I was just more disciplined, if I was just more focused, if all we are doing is piling the really unrealistic expectations. Now, this is a weird metaphor to use, so forgive me, but it's a bit like if you have a home that is absolutely stuffed to the brim full of clutter. And you'll know people who live like this. I know people who live like this. And they will say to themselves, if I just had better storage, if I was just more organized, if I just have a system, if I just label everything, if I just. And the bottom line is, you need to get rid of some of the crap out of your house. That's the bottom line. And so you can never be organized enough to have a system with that much stuff in your house. So the bottom line is, you need to work out, what do I need to get rid of? And it's kind of the same with your mindset and with any industry. Yes, we can all benefit from being a bit more organized, a bit more disciplined, a bit more focused, of course, but there comes a point where it's not a you problem. It's not that you're not enough, it's that there is physically too much stuff. You need to clear some out. It could be the same with our mindset. It's not that you're not enough, it's that you're balancing too many things. So what can you let go of? And I think, unfortunately, in farming, what I see happen is, what people let go of is the self-care. So they don't look after themselves. They're not focusing on healthy, nutritious meals. They're focusing on the quick fixes, which might be something like alcohol after work. And it's almost, well, I could do the work, but I am holding so much stuff in my head that actually I just need to quiet the noise for a bit. So I'll have a pint and that will take care of that for a night. And then tomorrow I'll face it all again. Whereas actually, what would serve someone better is to think, what do I need to clear out? What can I let go of? What do I need to? So it's a weird metaphor, because it's kind of messy house, messy mind, but it is that sort of, if you can clear some of the clutter and let go of the stuff that isn't helping you, your life will be so much easier. And I think that's why I really wanted people to kind of take back that control of their well-being, so that they didn't feel they were just walking into someone else's house and being like, oh, now I have to deal with all this. It's like, no, I can decide how I live here. I'm mixing my metaphors. I hope that makes some sort of sense.
No, it does. It totally does. I think that's a brilliant way to explain it, Steph, and actually brings us nicely on to the second sort of thing that I really wanted to get your thoughts on, because it's budget day today. We all know how that's gone for farmers so far. There's a lot of people down in London today protesting. I get asked a lot what I think about the protesting side, and my answer is, if it makes people feel better and they feel more in control, then go for it. The downside of it to me is, I don't think it makes any difference. Certainly not in this case. I don't think it's going to make any difference. And the other part of that is, most people will be away from farm for a day, if not 2 days, especially if they're going down to London. And what could they be doing that was more constructive for themselves, that they can control in that time? So you talk about letting go of stuff in agriculture, Steph, like, you know, there's so much that is out of our control: the weather, the policy, the prices if you're selling into the commercial supply chain, you know, all that kind of stuff. And those things have a massive impact on a business. I am not disputing that, they really do. But you only have to read, like, well, your books for a start, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The people that are successful in life really get a grip on this, controlling what they can control, and not ignoring what they can't, taking what they need to from it and acknowledging it, but letting it go. And I'm guessing with what you've just said about messy house, messy mind, all that kind of thing, I'm guessing there's quite a lot of that's the sort of things that maybe people should be letting go of. Do you think? What's your thoughts on that?
It's such an interesting one, isn't it? Because I'm with you in that I think actually the sense of community, the sense of frustration in not being heard, I think people feel driven to protest. And I think so I think 2 things. So I think firstly, I really believe in paying attention to who you're surrounding yourself with. So I'm all for protesting, getting your voice heard, getting your message heard. But if it's leaving you in the company of very negative, very stuck, very unconstructive, very negative, sort of pulling down your energy conversations, then I would want to think, who is having influence in that space? Who is the right person to talk to? How do I get my individual voice heard to represent the group that I belong to in a way that's going to feel maybe more constructive? Or if I'm feeling very low in energy and I haven't got the energy to go to London and I feel like I'm letting people down, how can I still feel like my voice is being heard? How can I still support my community? How can I still get my kind of beliefs and priorities out there and get them listened to in a way that feels constructive? So I think there's that side of it, where sometimes I think these protests can bring the absolute best people together, but I think sometimes they can also bring the most despondent, the most negative, the most and it's not either or. Obviously you're going to get some people who feel a bit of both, but I do think it's, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are they uplifting your energy and mobilizing you to action, and you're really doing something constructive and you feel really positive and fired up? Or do you just feel hopeless and depressed spending time with people? And I think for me, there isn't a right or wrong. I think it would depend. I mean, we've probably all been on protests and marches about things that matter to us, and I think there can be a real sense of like camaraderie, and you come together and you feel supported and you feel validated. But it's almost what suits your energy right now, but also who suits your energy. And I think connecting with the right people in a way that is going to make you feel uplifted and positive, and as though you're taking positive action, for me, that's a big part of this story. Because I think sometimes people go because they don't know what else to do. And they feel like they're letting the side down. So if, like, you and 16 friends were all going down to London, you said, Steph, are you going to come and support us? I would feel, part of me would be like, well, I now feel I should, but maybe, you know, full of head cold or whatever, you know, it's actually, is that the best use of my energy, or would I be better drawing press attention to it? Would I be better drawing political attention to it? Would I be better trying to get a meeting with my MP? And of course, some people have tried all these avenues and they feel, well, my last option is to go and take my tractor and protest. But so I don't have any objection to it in principle, but I really think it's tuning into your energy and realizing if you don't have the energy or the headspace to do something like that, you can still impact things and have positive change, but just maybe in a way that serves you better.
Take it from a miserable old git. If you think you're the only one having family bust-ups, you're wrong. Muppet. We all have them. Let Amy help you. She's all right once you get past the swearing. Have a look at her website and give her a bell.
You articulated that way better than I did. I couldn't agree more. It's and I know I've experienced it myself. You know, in the industry, I was very, very spoilt for a long time with the farmers that I worked with. They were amazing, so positive. Not like everybody's got things going wrong in life. That's just life, isn't it? But they were just, their mindset and the way they dealt with it was amazing. And then there was a period of time where I wasn't, and I was surrounded, not just farmers, industry as well. And do you know, Steph, it made me want to leave the industry. Genuinely, I was just like, what the hell? And then I'd have another day with some really positive people and I'd be like, right, okay, I've figured it out now. I need to avoid those people and be around these people. And you're right, it makes such a massive difference. But so coming back to controlling what we can control, my understanding is, and please tell me here as the expert, that autonomy, the feeling of being in control, is huge when it comes to human well-being. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's central to everything. So our brains absolutely hate uncertainty. They hate that feeling of uncertainty. So our brains want a deadline and a plan, and they want to know how. So even if it's something really uncomfortable, so take my head cold, my mood would be better dealing with this if I knew, well, by Friday it'll be gone.
Yes.
So no matter how bad it was, my brain would go, just hang on in there because you've got a few more days. But as it is, it seems to be lingering and I can't get rid of the thing. But our brains are like that sort of deadline, that certainty, and that sense of control. And what happens is when we feel out of control, sometimes our brain will dump straight into doing mode. So it will just do anything. So it could be a terrible plan, but it will be a plan. So your brain's like, great, I've got a plan now. I've got a sense of direction. Off I go. And that's why, and I have a whole chapter on this in the book about start by stopping. So when you're super busy, your brain is going to want to go, right, well, I'll just start doing this. And before you know it, and we've all had that where we are halfway on the way to a friend's house because they've called in crisis. And then we think, oh, actually, I haven't got any of the things that could help them. What would have been better is to go and do their food shopping so that or go and pick their kids up or go and do something. But instead you're like in action mode. And then you're like, oh, actually, I'm not doing anything useful, but your brain kind of set you off on that path. And I think if you bring it back, and I'm a big believer in that kind of tune in. So kind of asking yourself, start by stopping, what do I need right now? So whatever is going on in your life, and it could be big, it could be small, it could be loads of minor irritations, it could be some big crisis. What do I need in this moment? And then what can I control? And I think that's so important to kind of, and I talk all the time, and I say this to people all the time, like, try not to borrow trouble. So we're so good at going, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And we're kind of borrowing trouble from a future that may or may not exist because we don't know that thing's going to happen. But our brains are what ifing. And I always say to people, don't try and just replace the thought, because that's easier said than done. Our brains don't really work like that, but balance it. So if your brain is going, oh, what if this all goes wrong? Just balance it with, what if it all goes right? And you're just forcing your brain to think of both scenarios. And that's something that's within your control. So even if you're really worried about something big is on your mind, and your brain says, oh, you know, what if this all goes terribly wrong? What if it doesn't? What if it's great? What if it's fantastic? And your brain constantly scans for threat. And I think that's really important to know, because it's a little quirk of the brain that isn't that helpful to humans. Your brain isn't interested in making you feel good. It's interested in keeping you alive, which is obviously very useful. But it means it only scans for threat. So if your boss emails you and says, see me today at 5 p.m, your brain doesn't go, oh, pay rise, yay. Yeah, your brain goes, uh-oh, what have I done?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, like it's bad news. Uh-oh. And it's the uncertainty your brain can't tolerate. So if your boss said, come and see him at 5 p.m. to discuss the upcoming conference about blah, 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 your brain would go, oh, okay, I know what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the ambiguity of see me at 5 p.m. Your brain
Yeah.
goes, oh, that's it. I'm sacked. I'm going to lose my mortgage. I'm going to lose my income. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose my family. And actually, your boss just wanted to discuss the conference. And you
Yeah.
just, oh. So I think it's that just balancing those thoughts and noticing what is within my control. That's where I'll put my energy, because it's like worrying about things like climate change or AI or all these like big things that are happening in the world that can make us feel so helpless. And you go, okay, well, I can't change big tech, but I can limit my interaction with software that I don't feel is safe for children, for example. I will not upload, I don't know, my children's images into these AI face recognition programs because I want to protect their images from large language models. So I can't control what Elon Musk is doing or Sam Altman's doing, but I can control my bit, and that makes me feel safer because that's the bit I can control. I can't stop people ordering private jets to go around the world, but I can do my recycling. Mm-hmm. So it's just that kind of what can I control, because I could spend all my energy ranting and raving about celebrities and their private jets, or I can just do my bit for the planet. I can do my composting, I can do my recycling, I can try and buy sustainably, I can try and support local business, all that good stuff. That's what's within my control. And it's just accepting there is lots that's out of your control, but if you focus on what's within it, you feel better in yourself.
Yeah. I can't control Rachel Reeves' budget, but I can get all the information that I can for my business and work towards the best possible outcome, which I'm not trying to diminish. In some cases it's not going to be pretty, but there is. Yeah. It's so even if, so Steph, you said our brain hates the uncertainty, even if it is fairly certain that it's not going to be a pleasant outcome for whatever, for your business, you know, if you are really impacted by these inheritance tax laws and it's going to be a shit show, is knowing that and trying to prepare as best you can still better than just ignoring it? Like, will that make your brain feel better? Is it better to acknowledge it?
Unhelpful answer alert, but kind of yes and no. Okay. So I would engage with the bits that you are going to find helpful. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is, let's say you suspect the outcome of this is going to affect my farm. Okay, if that's a suspicion, who do you need to speak to have that confirmed or denied? What free legal advice do you have access to through various charities and associations within the sector? Yep. Who around me is in a similar situation? Who is handling it well? So kind of who can validate how I feel? Who can I have a good moan to? Because we all need to kind of, have a cuppa and kind of get it off our chest and all the rest of it. But who is the person who is managing it well? Is there power in uniting our voices? Because I think what can be unhelpful is if we just have someone to have a moan with and you feel very despondent, and then you go and speak to a friend and they're very despondent, and then you kind of have a good moan, but you both leave just feeling like you're worn out and exhausted. Whereas if I said to you, Amy, I'm really anxious about this or I need to fill in this application and I'm overwhelmed and I don't have time, and you said, you know what, I did mine last week, I'm coming round, I'm bringing a flask of coffee and we're going to power through, then that is more helpful to me than cursing Rachel Reeves online or whatever it may be. So I think it's that focus, knowing what's coming, knowing for sure what's coming and how it will affect you is going to be better for your brain than what ifing 100 different solutions to problems that may or may not exist. I think so from that point of view. But equally, it's okay if you get a devastating blow due to the budget or due to just life events, whatever may happen, to start by stopping and be like, how am I with this news? How am I actually with this news? What do I need right now? Rather than, oh, the industry's saying this or the farm saying this or everyone else is saying this. It's like, ignore the noise. How am I doing? And I find that really interesting in farming, particularly because sometimes people say to me, well, I should feel this, but I don't. or I feel like I should be saying this, or I feel like I should go to this meeting, or I feel like I should lend my support to this person. But actually we're in very different positions, or their situation isn't my situation, or I'm dealing with something totally different in my personal life and I just don't have the headspace to do that as well. And you sort of see that real conflicting priorities and that real sort of conflict within people where they're like, oh, I'm not sure where to put my energy.
Yeah.
And I would say always start with yourself. So what is it that you need in this moment? Maybe it is, I'm going to go and protest and I'm going to march through London and I'm going to get my voice heard. Or maybe it's, do you know what, this is overwhelming. What I need to do is have some quiet time out in the fields, breathing the air, reminding myself why I do this, taking a cuppa out there and just breathing.
Yeah.
And just taking a moment and sort of grounding myself in my work and then making a plan. So I think it's that what you can control, but also what is going to be helpful to get involved with. And when do I just need to pause?
Yeah. And that piece, Steph, about finding somebody who is in a similar situation, but in a proactive way rather than a moaning way. Like, I've spent years and years running discussion groups, and that is the crux of it. Like, the impact that finding somebody that is nobody's ever going to be exactly the same, but is similar situation, and actually picking their brains. How have you done this? But again, it's something that, generally speaking, we're not good at in agriculture. It's almost like it's a sign of weakness. You're not even asking for help, you're just asking questions. It's almost a sign, you keep your cards close to your chest, but actually that is where the learning comes from. And also, if you have had a positive experience with an advisor or an organization, or and they've really helped you, tell people about it. Like, the industry and the news and social media at the minute, I feel, just seems to be full of, well, it's the same across society, and it's full of rubbish, horrible stories. And actually, I would love to find some people that have taken this news on board and been really proactive about trying to sort something out in time. And how have they done that, and what have they done? So if anybody's listening and you've done that, please get in touch, because I'd love to speak to you, because it is amazing. It's all right, people like me saying, well, just, have you thought about doing X, Y, and Z? And I say those things because I've seen somebody at the other end of the country do it.
Yes.
And people don't believe you. And I'm like, no, this hasn't come from a textbook. I know a person here that, do you want me to put you in touch? No. It's like, oh, and I think exactly as you've just said, that person hasn't taken the time to think, what do I need? They're still in like, it's too much mode, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. And I think as well, so because you raised a really good point there about social media, and I think this is a bit of it. So I'm an AI ethicist, so I swim around in the space of social media and algorithms and all that kind of stuff quite a lot. And what I would say is the model of social media is that if you are enraged, you are engaged.
Interesting.
So if you spend a lot of time on social media, and I've really seen actually the sector engage with things like TikTok and Instagram, and which is fun and it's great to see. But the downside of that is that if you and I put up 2 posts at the same time, and my one said, I had a really lovely chat with Amy this morning with like a little smiley face, I might get a few likes from like my mum and a friend. If you put something up saying, you're not going to believe what that cow Fitz said on my podcast, you'll post instantly, because people are going to be like, wait, what? Why? What? Well, it's more emotive. So they're going to be, oh my word, like what's gone on there? And even if it's complete clickbait, it doesn't matter, because people will be in. And then if they're in, they're looking for it. So they're scrolling more, so they're engaged. And then the algorithm will go, oh, I've got you now. Here's something to wind you up. And it's not a person, it's an algorithm. So it's not, they don't have a guilty conscience, these things. It is literally an algorithm. So it will push you things that will annoy you. It will push you things that will enrage you. It will push you things that will make you so angry or depressed or upset. Because if you are activated in that way, you're going to stay online. So I'm all for social media, but I curate mine so heavily that I only see the good in the world. And as soon as something negative comes up on my social media, I close the app, because I want it to learn, no, I'm not reading that.
No,
I'm not engaging it. And I think it's really important to remember that people who are out there doing successful things and who are managing these difficulties well do not have the time or energy to go and be negative on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And so you often do miss the good.
Yeah.
You miss the good. Whereas that engaging with someone in person or face to face or over the phone, whatever it may be, actually speaking to a person who says, oh, I had this amazing advisor who helped me with that. Let me connect you with them. And then before you know it, you're on the phone to, I don't know, Tracy, the financial advisor who's supporting you with whatever. And then it's like, great, now I've got some real legal advice, or I've got some real financial backing, or I've heard about this organization that I'd never heard of, but they do amazing fundraising for, you know, farmers who need support with whatever. There is suddenly this like real network of positivity and community.
Yeah.
It's harder to find that online because the algorithm is trying to upset you. So it's just worth people knowing, if you're in that space, you're not necessarily going to get the support that you need unless you really look for it.
No. That is fascinating. It terrifies me, the social media, actually. It does. Luckily, I must have trained mine just to put ridiculous videos up all the time. I spend my time howling at Instagram in particular. But, oh, God. Okay. So, Steph, you've just spoken about finding people that are doing things well that you can take some learning from. Another recent bullshit video I put on social media was about tall poppy syndrome. So I have heard farmers criticize, you know, there'll be a farmer that's maybe had an article in the Farmers Weekly, or they've had a video done for social media, not one that they've put on themselves, but like somebody will have asked them to do a video to showcase or demonstrate something positive that they have done on farm. And I have had feedback from other farmers along the lines of, all right, so they're the ones that we should all be copying. Or, well, yeah, they're only out wintering the cows to make money. Like stupid comments. Instead of looking at that person and thinking, good on you, what could I think about from that? Or is there anything that I can take from that? Talk me through this psychology, this tall poppy syndrome thing, where instead of being, we're just supportive of each other and saying, well done, and then thinking, actually, what can I steal from that? We instantly, or a lot of us instantly go into this, stick two fingers up, I'm not going to take any notice, you're just showing off sort of thing. Talk me through that.
So what do I think about that, Amy? So I think there are a few ways to approach this. The first thing is, I always think you don't need to respect the opinion of someone who you wouldn't turn to for advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's a good balancer to have in your head. So if someone were to say to you, do you know what, Amy, that video you put up, like, don't know who you think you are, you're getting a big for your boots, or, you know, something like this, ask yourself, do I value you enough that in a crisis I would seek your advice?
Mm-hmm.
Do I value your opinion? Because for some people it might be yes, like it might be your best friend saying, like, oh, that video you put up, you were a bit sweary or whatever, and you think, oh, hold on, I trust your opinion, and if you're telling me that, I would come to you for advice. I'm going to just tune into that. I'm going to watch that behavior a little bit. But if it's, you know, some random farmer on social media has posted a comment underneath, as difficult as it can be, let it go.
Yep.
So let them. It's that Mel Robbins thing. Let them do their thing. Because whilst they are swimming in negativity, you are doing something positive. And again, the people who read that article and went, I love that idea, I'm going to go away and do that, they are busy going and doing and taking your amazing advice on board. They are not busy being negative on social media. But the other thing to remember is it's nothing to do with you. It's nothing to do with you. You have just triggered something in them. And often farming historically has been a very competitive industry. And I think remains some of that sort of competitiveness. What you are basically triggering in someone is, well, hold on, why have you done that and I haven't? Or how come you get that? I should have that. So it's a bit deeper than just jealousy.
Yeah.
It's that kind of competitiveness because it's a survival industry and it's whoever's thriving survives, right?
Yeah.
And so people see someone else thrive and they think, oh no, I should be doing that. So the fact that I'm not means there's something wrong with me. But also you get that in any industry, any industry at all. If you are successful, there will always be someone who looks at you and thinks, well, you're really lucky to be where you are and I just have bad luck. And you go, okay, well, it's funny how the luckier I become seems to coincide with the harder I work. The harder I work, the luckier I become. And it's that actually it's okay for people to look at what you're doing and not like it, because you're not doing it for them.
Yeah.
You're doing it for the person that read that article, saw that video, looked at the resource you put out there, completed the survey, did whatever it is, and really benefited from it. And I think that's the bit to remember. You can't please all the people all the time. Focus on the ones who love what you're doing. And if someone's like, oh, so what should we be doing? What I will say is a tiny cultural change that I really like is I find people sometimes say things automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tweak it to a positive, they also tweak it. So like it's a daft example, but say if like we were looking at something and I don't know, we were reading a magazine and we saw someone's outfit and they looked amazing. You say, oh, well, it's all right for her to look amazing. That coat costs £1,000. Right. And you might think, oh, here we go. I've got an option there. And I can either go, yeah, got a lucky cow. Like, oh, you know, it's all right for her. Well, we'd all look great in a grand coat, you know. But if you just do a tiny positive, like, oh my word, though, look how fantastic she looks. Or, oh, would you credit, like, I don't know, her sense of style? Or isn't she wonderful to have those amazing stylists around her? Like, you know, clever girl for employing someone who really gets her look.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not putting down what you said. I'm not saying, hey, don't be so negative. Like, let's all be positive. I'm just tweaking my response slightly.
Yeah.
And what you find is that people change around you. So again, daft example, as you know, I love these daft examples, but I was in a cafe and there was a mum there and she had 2 kids who, God bless her, they were terrors, you know, just kids going through that. They were running around and they were like, oh my goodness. And there was this lady behind me who was in full tutting mode, you know, so, and she was really kind of getting across her, and she nudged me as if to include me in the tutting, you know, like, oh, you know, God, look at this woman. And I just went, oh, bless her. Can you imagine trying to manage 2 children like that? Isn't she doing well? And her whole face changed. And it was almost like she looked again. And I said, I feel like I want to help, but I don't want to interfere. Do you think we should do something? And this poor mum just looked, I mean, you know, it's awful. She was surrounded by bags and wellies and kids running around, and they were just glad to be in the warm and stuck in this steamy cafe. And I can't remember what it was that I had with me, but I had some sort of distraction or whatever. And I said, can I show your boys this? So my nephew thinks this is really cool. I'll tell you what it was. It was a model of the brain. There's a neuropsychologist.
Just randomly walking.
Just randomly walking around, as you do. But I have this model of this brain on this iPad, and it turns it into a game, and you have to like move things around. And my nephew loved it when he was younger. And I said, boys, can I show you something really cool? So they're all over, you know, right, show me. And I was like, do you know this is in your head? And they were like, what? And I was like, so this bit is the bit that means you can see me now. And this bit means this. And you could see this mum go, oh,
thank you.
The lady behind me was also like, oh, what about this, boys? Like, can you? And she was like joining in. And it was a tiny change.
Yeah.
But rather than just going, oh, yeah, rather than choosing the negative, it was just that little tweak into, oh, bless her, isn't she doing well? Should we help?
That is it. That is amazing.
And it's tiny.
Yeah, I am taking that on board, because when somebody chops somebody down in front of me, it makes me really mad. And I will say, I think you're a dickhead for saying that. Whereas actually a better way to do, that is fascinating. It's almost like a group think type thing, isn't it? Like, that's amazing. Okay, so there we go. Everybody listening, that is your task. That's a task I'm giving you. If you hear somebody slagging somebody off at the auction or something, have a go at that, because that is, I believe that is why it's so rife in the industry. It's rife everywhere, but I'm only bothered about agriculture. It's because people don't call people out on it, but they actually don't need to call people out on it. They use that. It's amazing.
And that's the thing, because so many people hate conflict, which I totally get. So many people are so conflict averse that they don't want to say, Amy, don't say that. That's really mean. Why would you say that? Whereas if I could say, oh, Amy, listen, wouldn't we all have £1,000 coats? Wouldn't that just be fantastic? That is totally different.
Yeah.
Or, oh, you know, even just admitting in yourself to someone else out loud, God, I'm jealous of that coat.
Yeah.
God, I'd love to have a coat like that. Wouldn't that be amazing? You just turn it slightly positive. So you're not criticizing the negative, but you're not engaging with it. And I think it's a really important boundary, particularly at work, that you know and that you put out there conversations you're happy to have.
Yeah.
and conversations you're not. So when I can remember working on one particular ward, which I won't name, and it was a very gossipy ward. And I've not really got the patience for gossip. I don't enjoy it. I don't find it kind, and it's just not for me. And I can remember saying, so every time we'd go to lunch, they'd be gossiping away. And I just thought, this isn't really for me. And they were always trying to sort of pull you in. And I just said to them one day, I said, forgive me, this isn't really I said, I'm not big on the old gossip. So I said, I love talking to you guys, love having lunch with you. I'm not a big gossiper. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable. So forgive me for it's not that I'm not joining in, it's just that it's not really for me. And I felt really uncomfortable saying it because I felt like I was criticizing them and I was a bit clumsy. And then what happened was, for the next few lunches, they'd be like, oh, everyone stop talking because Steph doesn't want to hear go, oh. And I just rode that wave. And then after a couple of weeks, we were actually having chats at lunch that mattered.
Yeah.
And we were having better conversations. They were much more positive because we weren't sniping about colleagues. We were just having chats about what we were doing in TV. Excuse me. And I'm sure they still gossiped. I'm sure I didn't change their personality. But it's okay to say at work, I don't want to talk about the budget at the moment. I'm overwhelmed with it. So can we talk about something else? I don't want to talk about how awful everything is. I want to look for one positive thing that happened on my farm today. And I want us to share that. That, just a tiny, tiny tweak, tiny mindset shift, something that, someone that you really valued this week, and letting them know and be like, I really valued that conversation. I felt really heard. Thank you. It's a bit of a change. And you'll notice in farm, like I say, those first couple of weeks afterwards, people could be a bit like, oh, hold on, this is new. And then it just becomes the way you do things. So I've really encouraged that. It's not about having a fight with someone. It's not about having to engage in conflict. It's about just a tiny conversational tweak that can make all the difference. And I really recommend it. And knowing in yourself, these conversations really help me at work. These ones really don't. I'm not engaging in those ones. Is a game changer.
Yeah. And it's a snowball effect, isn't it? The more of us do that and put those boundaries in place, the more it will just become normal. It will just become normal.
Yeah.
Steph, before we finish, you have got a new book out, which I haven't read yet. I'm going to hold my hands up, but I have a feeling it might relate very much to farming. It's called The Gifts of Winter, and it's about, correct me if I'm wrong, working with winter, basically. How you get through that as a human. Do you want to just give us a bit of a, what is it? Tell us about it.
Yes, absolutely. So it's my latest book. So it's just out this year, came out in October, and it is exactly that. It's about how to be with winter, and it's sharing a very different side of winter. I think the rhetoric around winter is very negative and it's very pessimistic. And if you look up winter, the words that we use for winter, it's cold, bleak, dark, dreary, etc. And I just have a very different view of winter. So winter solstice happens on 21st, 22nd of December, and that's the shortest day, which means winter arrives with a little bit more light every day and a little bit more hope, if you like, that comes with that, different environments. I think it's one of our driest seasons, winter. It's often when we get the most blue skies. It's often when we enjoy. So we think of it as this cold, dark, horrible season. And I would argue, actually, for me, learning how to be with winter rather than battle it was just such a game changer. And I used to really struggle with winter. So and I'm sure lots of people get that sort of winter blues feeling. And the more kind of severe end of that is seasonal affective disorder, and learning how to manage those things and support your brain throughout the different seasons and living a bit more seasonally. It just makes such a difference. And I think I just wanted again to kind of put a book out there that gave people an option to do things a different way and to find a way to fall in love with winter. And like, for me, winter is my absolute favorite season. And yet, if you told 20-something Steph that, she'd have laughed. She hated it. So it's hopefully going to bring a lot of comfort and joy to people this time of year.
Amazing. I can't wait to read that, because we've got a gorgeous day here, and for me there is no better day. Cold, frosty, sunny. Love it. Absolutely love it. And obviously farmers are outside, whether it's raining, windy, snowy, whatever. So I feel like that will be a good read for a lot of the agricultural community. And I know a lot of people do suffer with, SAD and those types of things, because yeah, you can't get away from it whether you're a farmer. So get that book and have a read of it. I certainly will be doing. But thank you so much, Steph. I could go on and on with you. Like, it's just been fascinating, and put the science behind just a lot of the things that I notice in the industry, and yeah, just makes total sense, which is exactly what I said about your reworked book. When I read that, it was like light bulbs going off left, right and centre. So thank you so much. And yeah, it's been lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Thank you. It's been lovely. Like I say, love working with farmers. So it's a joy to be part of the podcast. Thank you.